Just a suggestion for the crowd, I would ask you to keep your question until the end of the lecture or the slides, that we can clear them afterwards. Now I would like to share my screen. We brought some slides for you. I hope now all of you can see the slides. If not, just let me know. And yeah, let's start. So, perfect. Because I believe that all of you have sufficient know-how around the topic startups, Niels and I don't have to start from scratch, but we can start directly with the basics, the so-called pitch. And as you can see in the headline, we should first ask ourselves, what is pitching about? So from our point of view, pitching is about explaining your idea or business model in a short time as possible with just a few simple words. Of course, you have to consider who you are facing, but we will come to that in the course of the presentation. We have also had numerous events and accompanied numerous pitches and have found that the pitches that were short and crisp mostly stayed in people's head. And as an exercise, I can recommend you the so-called elevator pitch. It's a pitch where you have to explain your idea in 30 seconds. You must be aware that the attention of a human being must be caught within 10 seconds. So therefore, this so-called elevator pitch is a good opportunity to catch the attention of the humans. My most important point is keep in mind that less is more. So specialize your pitch to few words that you have to explain to the audience. Niels, do you have anything to add?
Yes, we are working mainly with people who come from the university. So they started engineering or IT or something, and they technological driven products are very complex. So most mistake, one of the mistakes we see the most is that startups tend to explain their idea to their listeners, especially to clients and investors. They want to make sure that the other person understands what's the idea about. And so they tend to stick into too much detail. And this is actually quite relatable because you spend a lot of time by creating your product, solving the problem, creating a solution, and now you have to rip it apart and just keep the core for the pitch. And this is actually hard work, and because you have to kill your darlings. But this is what I want to motivate you to do, especially in German. When you pitch in Germany, is kill your darlings and keep a rough concept of your idea into your pitch, because you will get asked questions about the details later. But you first, as Nelson said, you have to gain and keep the attention of the audience to then go into detail and make them, you want to build intrigue for the people to spend more time with you and your idea. And this is basically the main reason why we pitch.
Thanks a lot. That leads me to the next slide. Yeah, at the beginning, I already said that you have to differentiate in front of whom you stand, be it in front of an audience at a big event. Yeah, I know currently a bit difficult, or in front of a customer to generate new products, or in front of investors. And then the last pitch in front of investors, we know, is always the biggest barriers to many of the startups. But especially with the first two candidates, the pitch in front of an audience or in front of customers, there it is pretty important to clarify and briefly explain your idea and get it to the point, especially if the companies are smaller. So they don't have any contact with innovation or digitization so far, and therefore the pitch and also the message should be pretty short and simple. Especially here in the Ruhr area, we have a lot of these small and medium-sized companies and have made exactly this experience. The more individual the startup in the case of the solution is, the better is the chance and the probability of success to work with the corporate. So a certain degree of individuality is particular an advantage for the work with customers. There are also numerous examples from the past where the startups did not adapt this individual factor, and so the customers didn't feel pretty valued. But here on the slide, we dedicate ourselves to the pitch of the investor and what is at the end important to him. We can see 4 points: the sweet spots, the team, the market needs and business models, and also the technologies. And yeah, these are the most important points at the view of the investors. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of the investors. It is pretty important that a startup recognizes and learns about investors. Investors do not want to make mistakes on their investments. They look for an experienced and organized team with high performance and leadership qualities. So most investors will research the business and background of the industry. Niels, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I want to point out that if you pitch in Germany, you have a special mindset, you can say. Like, I mean, risk aversion is always a problem in any deal making, because if you want to sell something, you have to convince the other people you want to sell to that they have low risk and high potential, right? So you could say that is a German specialty, that we are maybe a little more risk avert than most other people. For instance, in Germany, we lack risk capital. So venture capital is quite low in comparing to European markets and especially to the US, right? So the reason is that when you pitch your startup in front of German investors, or even with clients, when you want to sell your product or make a project deal with a company, they look for validation. And these 4 points, which we have put on the slide here, are the main fields of where the validation takes place. Like Nelson said, for example, like which background has the team? Do they have enough resources and know how to pull this off? And on the other hand, technology and, for example, like the GDPR, like data security, are very high rated points for an idea, where you have to make sure that you work with these 4 bullet points to create something like a validation point. What we mean with sweet spot is that you can make sure, especially to an investor, that you have focused maybe a more little market in the beginning, but where you can make fast progress, like the low-hanging fruits, which you can earn in the early stage of your company. So, and these all 4 points together are the main core of the validation. And this is especially important when you want to raise capital here in Germany or cooperate with greater corporates.
Yeah, just to add a last point, just remember in general, no matter where you pitch, always put yourself in the position of the listener and adjust your presentation and focus accordingly. So if you pitch in front of an investor, may answer yourself the questions, for example, how do the financial risks are, where they are, and what are, for example, operational key factors. And these are also questions you have to get in mind when you stay in front of the investor. Now, Niels, you have to take the ball. What's the tasks in your point, in your eyes? Okay.
When you hold your pitch, there are three key things you want to make sure that your listeners get that. Many startups start off with a vision, like what's the main goal, what's on the end of our journey. So the vision statement is often and way often a part of the pitch deck. So what are you aiming for is actually a pretty important question. But there are two more things I would suggest you to add, and this is on the left-hand side, the mission. Like, which problems are you tackling in the early stage of your company? This relates to the sweet spot we talked before, because you have to find doable business in the beginning of your company, which actually are in favor of your main vision and your goal that you're aiming for. And these two things are connected with the strategy. Like, how does it work for your customer? And how does the strategy translate from the first business you make to the main vision you have to promote in your pitch deck? Okay.
Thank you. And from my point of view, I think this slide illustrates also the structure of your pitch deck, doesn't it? So start with the mission, start at the beginning with the problem you solve, then go further to the strategy you have. And at the last point, you talk about your vision and also your team experiences. I think this should be also, or in every case, the structure of a pitch deck. Then let me see if I have.
Then while you're looking for the next thing, let me add, this is actually a good thing because the team and the team's vision is quite relatable to each other. Like, your team has to have a vision when they do business. And this actually is a very important point of the team where we head to later on. And your business model is part of the strategy you present.
And what also helps, I think, is or are references you already had with other customers to convince new customers to get to work with them. So all that stuff you could and have to put in your presentation when you speak to investors or new customers. Yeah, let's now talk about the frame.
Yes.
Why now, Niels? Why now you have to frame the idea?
Yeah, because this is actually something we see very often. Like when startups pitch and everyone's like, "Hey, this is a really great idea. We should do it sometimes. And yeah, keep us informed. Let's keep in touch. Very interesting. You want to see how you develop and your company develops." So especially German customers in B2B business, so companies and corporates, tend to stay in touch with startups to see over a period of time how they are doing. But this is actually quite dangerous because when you have, for example, like you have your seed funding and you're running out of time because the clock is the enemy, right? You have to make business in a certain amount of time to make use of the funding you got. Then this is quite dangerous because people tend to be hesitant with making deals with startups. So what you have to do is you have to tell them this is not only a good idea in general, but this is a good idea right now, because now we have business opportunities. Now we have the technological development. We have discussions inside the society, which all point towards our idea and make it happen now. So my advice for you is to make a strong suggestion in your pitch that different circumstances and potential factors from market, society, technology are always pointing towards your idea. Because if you don't frame your idea, the other person would. And then the question is, is it something which we actually want to do? And I just tell you, like, see how we develop with electric vehicles in Germany. Like, we are hesitant, really hesitant with that, because we see how this thing develops. Yeah, we want to make sure that this is actually a good idea. And what now? We have US and the Chinese market are way ahead of our development. And I mean, like, for a period of time, we have been the auto country, right? Where we have VW, Mercedes-Benz, BMW and stuff, but they were all hesitant to this new idea because I think they had the wrong factors in mind when they were making this decision. And this could actually happen to you if you don't frame your idea. So frame it right now. Why is it now a good idea and not only in general?
Yeah, thank you, Niels. This was also the example I had to or wanted to mention. So thanks for that. And let's
Oh, I'm
step
sorry.
over to nothing. Let's step over to the next slide. The team. So what should the team have? Which skills are important? Which backgrounds are important for the team, and who should work strategically with or in the team?
Yeah. Um, I put this slide into this because what we see a lot is like a team slide inside the pitch deck where you have photos and pictures of the people, and then you have the titles like, oh, this is our CTO, here's our CFO, CMO, and so on and so on. But the team chart actually has a lot of potential for validating your idea. And this comes by pointing out which skills does every team member has, which background does he bring, and on which task does he work, because these are the most important things. Like, it's good to have I see like CMO, but who is actually putting up the phone and calling potential clients? You know what I mean? Like, who is on this level on the task and hands-on business? And when you show that, then you can show potential investor or client that you have a good structure and that you have a plan who tackles which task. And with your background, like Nelson mentioned, you make a good impression that you know how to run the company and how to run a startup especially. And therefore, these three things represented by one or two keywords each. You don't have to put the whole CV in there, but one or two keywords to every person on each of these three bullet points are fairly enough to make a good impression of your team. And then they can stick into detail afterwards when they ask you questions about your background, for example. So you can also use it to build intrigue for the team. Like, who are they and what are they doing? And what were you doing until now when you started a company, right? And so therefore, this slide, the structure of the slide is my suggestion for you to integrate your pitch deck.
Yeah, and just to add a little thing, especially, or you mentioned the Q&A session, especially in the Q&A session, present your strengths to the audience, and be completely transparent if anything doesn't work. For example, when you need some help internal in the team, when you need, for example, a marketing expert, be completely transparent. May in the audience will be someone who can help you to at this point. And in my point of view, or in my experience, investors are more likely to invest in a well-structured and authentic team with a bad idea than in a good business with a good team. So yeah, this is pretty important to stay and get in mind. So this is I think this was our last point. Oh no, sorry, the prevention and promotion part.
Yes, I totally support the point you just mentioned, like that investors are more likely to invest in people than in products. I mean, like, it helps a lot if you have a good business idea and a good product, but when in doubt, invest in the better team. You're completely right there. Okay, Q&A session is a good keyword because I wanted to point out one thing for Q&A sessions after the pitch. And maybe will make the experience, especially in Germany, that there is something different about questions you get asked. So we can like sort and structure the questions you get asked with two frames. The one on the left-hand side is the prevention frame. Like the prevention frame are questions who focus on, are you able to execute the idea? How do you secure the market shares you are aiming for? And how big are your margins? And can you make them a little bigger just for safety reasons? These are questions who ask about the risk prevention in doing your startup, in working with you. Like, they want to make sure, like, is there a good execution on the team? And therefore, the team chart is very important. But these questions come a lot. Like, for example, like, what do you want to do with the money I give you? How do you make sure that the company grows as you planned? And these questions are prevention questions. We have to keep in mind to answer them, and you have to set a new frame. And this frame should be the promotion frame, because promotion framed questions are about growth, size, and sales. Like, oh yeah, this is a great idea. How big can you become in 1 year? Yeah, which size on the market you can tackle. So does the market grow, or how you can put up the sales by, for example, like getting new people on board on your team. And the difference here, you see, is like on the one hand, we ask about like how do you secure your shares, and on the promotion end of the question, we ask how do you gain new shares of the market you aim for. And this is a slightly and a tiny difference, but make a difference between, are they asking to calculate risk with prevention frames, or are they do they want to know how big is your potential? This is the promotion frame. And bad news, female founders get asked way more prevention framed questions than promotion framed questions. There are a lot of studies going on with venture capital and female founders, and they all point to the thing that when a female founder is pitching in front of especially male investors, they get a lot of prevention questions and a lot of framing in this direction, like how do you make sure? While their male counterparts get questions for promotion, like how big can your idea actually be? So your job when you, and let's keep this clear, also male founders get asked these questions about prevention. And especially in Germany, we see when we work with startups on investors, for pitches for investors, for example, we see a lot of these prevention questions. So what we do is we try to take the question, answer them precisely, and then go to the promotion side. Like when they ask for how you secure your market shares, answer the question about the strategy, and then transfer it into, and with this strategy, we want to go and even gain for new markets and for new market shares to grow in size with this and that strategy. Therefore, you can always reframe these questions. This is something you have to train a bit, but for the first step, it helps a lot to keep track about the questions you get asked. And if you come from a pitch, then look at the questions and try to sort them. Like, was this a prevention or a promotion question? And then you can develop answers to these questions, and then you get really tough on the Q&A sessions afterwards. And when you are able to reframe these questions and point towards the potential of your idea, you are very well based for a good pitch and maybe even a good deal in the end.
Thank you, Niels. I'm honest, I have nothing to add at this point. So I think if I'm looking to the clock, 30 minutes on point. So I think now we can go
can
to
you just click once, please? Because I think
yeah, sure.
There was yes, you see there. You know, prevention is risk management and promotion is potential. Here we go. Okay.
Well,
now I'm finished with this chat. Oh no, no problem. Everything is fine.
Yeah, now we are ready for questions. Let me just stop the slide.